the battle you could do it, but not in this.
No, not in that sense. And I mean, you took human life for human sacrifice. You usually took prisoners or even sometimes chosen people out of your own people to sacrifice. Because Vikings did human sacrifice. That was a big part. In Vladimir would have done human sacrifice. And I don't remember if it talks about it in there, but he would have.
Some of their own people.
Sometimes their own people. There was like lots drawn at times. It depends. It depends on the place and the time. And so it changes in different times. But I think at times there was kind of a choosing, and it was, anybody could kind of be the one. But it's I think also somewhat of a revered thing if you're chosen. I don't think it's completely a negative. It's also like when a Viking king dies, one of his concubines would willingly choose to die with him and follow him into the afterlife. And so they would let her drink some hallucinogen potion, and she would go into a trance, and they'd throw her on the flaming boat with him, alive usually.
Well, like in India, the same ritual.
Yeah. These are things all around the world, but it's a part of it's a part of human nature. It's sacrifice. Yes, but I don't know. But we still sacrifice people in other ways.
I agree.
We don't have to go into.
We do it in a moral way.
Yeah. Well,
we destroy them. If we feel.
We just charge hundreds of thousands of dollars for the pills that people need to stay alive. Instead of keeping them alive with our human nature, we use our capitalist nature to make money off them instead.
No. All we can do
is we sacrifice them. Yeah.
We kind of use media or something. We use different ways. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we do.
Sometimes, on both sides.
We're screwed up.
So you know what I mean? It's just it could be done in a different way. So I agree. In fact, I didn't think about it, but you just raised an interesting issue: the way of human sacrifice in the postmodern age.
Yeah. We'll talk about that another time. How do we sacrifice each other in a postmodern age?
Okay, let's go back.
But yeah, so back to this is so they have this this culture of exiling their men, and these men many times would follow their cousins or whoever down the Volga or to Kiev, and then on to Constantinople, and sometimes these men would have killed someone, and they're looking for retribution, or not retribution, they're looking for repentance, and so Constantinople played a role to the Vikings, and even of all kinds, not just the Russian Vikings, as a Jerusalem for the Christians of the Catholic Church, when they do their crusades. And so it's a place for holy repentance and reforming yourself. And so some of these men would stay down there. Some of these men would come back once their exile time was up. But there's these tales of people coming back and forth. Not a lot of them, but enough of them where that it's a significant amount of people were doing it before the Crusades have even started. You have these people making enormous journeys. It's not just for wealth, which sometimes they did come back with money, but it's for. He really stresses the amount of dignity you gained by going to Constantinople and what that meant to every other Viking. You went to the Holy City. Yeah, it's interesting to see how they see this city, and it's a different thing than you see from obviously the West. The Constantinople, it gets sacked eventually. It's a stopping point on the way to Jerusalem. Though at this point, Constantinople is a much more grand city than Jerusalem. Still, Jerusalem, not that it's a backwater; it's got huge walls.
Late, it was considered the secondary.
Right.
In its importance, because those who were crusading, they belonged to the Roman domain.
Right. Yeah.
So they didn't care about it. Unlike this kind of what some Eastern Vikings who were in the East.
Yeah, but it's not just Vikings in the East. It's even Vikings in back in the homeland, in Scandinavia, who see Constantinople maybe even as a higher standing than Jerusalem. And that's somewhat what he argues, is that.
Really?
Yeah. Is that there's a different view, and these sources are Icelandic sources. These are like tales told in Iceland.
Well, it makes sense.
A couple hundred years later.
can make a judgment about this imagery, what they were thinking about Constantinople.
And it's this wondrous city, that we'll never go to, but every once in a while, someone from Iceland goes all the way to Constantinople.
But to what extent it was a religious revelation?
It depends, I think, on the person.
Telling me about this, listening to you, I'm asking myself this question.
Yeah.
So how does he answer this question? What he sees here that kind of, it was driven by spiritual motives, or I'm just curious.
He puts it as the people who do this are written about in two different ways. They're written about if they come back with great riches, and they come back, with social standing. Harold Hardrada is a great example of that. He's the Viking who was part of the Vanguard Guard, and then went and invaded Norway, his homeland, and took it over, and then invaded England and failed. But he did this same, I guess, cycle as many others do. Many others after him follow this same pattern, and they don't get the same amount of grandeur in the stories, and they might even not have done the same thing. Ben is grand, but the stories are told based off of his story, maybe a little bit. And the second nature of these stories is where they stay. And the people who stay in Greece are given this religious reverence and given this, became this holy person. They did this out of faith more than want of wealth. And so how true that actually is, he definitely questions, and he puts that question out there because you can't know. And this is all secondary and written far after. Looking at the way that they write about them, you can assume that there is an element of faith involved in it. And even if when they set out it wasn't there, the way that they think of it back home is that
it came later. They were exposed to this beauty and awesome kind of buildings and everything, and it creates the spiritual experience, right?
And that is exactly what Vladimir talks about. Volkoff talks about in his book, is that the beauty is what made Prince Vladimir want to become a Orthodox Christian. Is that he wanted joy and beauty to be a part of his worship, not Muslim worship, which is a lot of prayer and a lot of following rules and no drinking, not Jewish culture where you can't eat pork and you got more rules. No, he wanted something easy that he could just slap onto his people and without having to change too much about what they do. Just tear down the totems, get rid of Perun, call him Jesus now. I mean, that's what he does. Yeah.
All right, great. Okay,
but yeah,
so let's just.
Well, that is all the time we have for today, ladies and gents. We want to thank Vladimir Volkoff for writing this stellar book, Dr. Andrei Znamenski for conducting the interview, and Konrad Bennett Hughes for writing, performing, and producing this week's Radio Hour. This has been Pirate News, casting off.
Where will I go? Where will I roll?
Pirate News is brought to you by Captain Vasorius Grimio. Writing